Hey there. Thanks for tuning in. You ready for another episode of my Bigfoot sighting? All right then, let's do this.
Seen a bunch of rundown no-horse towns where the church is the backbone, loves in the plow, and the five-string melodies grooving, with the farmland rows where the roots run deep, beyond the noise of the busy streets, where the songs of the South are soothing. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Yeah.
Welcome to my Bigfoot Sightings podcast, brought to you by Vic Cundiff. And I guess you know this isn't Vic talking. This is Mark Newbill from Sawdust Beast. And we're going to talk about a project that we have been working on with Neil and Scott and Sheila and Nate from Squatch-Fishing Outfitters. And it's really something that's up in the air, and we don't know what's going to happen. I produced a little documentary on it and went down there and did a little research myself. And I'm just excited to be able to share this with everyone. And I hope that if somebody that is out there that is in this same situation, that it might help them from what we are going through. So first, I'd like to introduce Neil from BigfootTalk.com.
Hey, how's everybody doing tonight?
And next, I would like to introduce Scott and Sheila Granger from Squatch-Fishing Outfitters.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, everyone. How are y'all doing?
And also we have Nate Robinson from Squatch-Fishing Outfitters. So how are you tonight, Nate?
Hey, y'all. I'm doing good. Thanks.
Neil, first, let's just do a little introduction and see if you can paint for us a picture of where you live at and the terrain in the surrounding areas and how you came to realize that there was Bigfoot on your property.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. When I was growing up, I always thought that there was Bigfoot, a possibility of Bigfoot. I liked all cryptids at the time, but I figured the Bigfoot was 50-50, but I never thought that there would be any in Georgia. We've got rolling hills around the house, a lot of streams around the property. We've got two streams, an old dried up pond, and it was a beautiful area. I was in the woods all the time growing up, not here, but another location. And so I learned a lot about the outdoors and all about the wildlife and what they do. Came here, we had the same wildlife here. Now, we don't have any bears here. That made it easy for me to figure out what was going on. Well, nothing was easy about it. But my wife and I wanted to find a place we could buy and retire to, and I wanted some property on it because I'd always had property to go watch the wildlife. I always loved the wildlife. We found this property, and it was all grown up. It had been abandoned for 8 to 10 years. So the first thing we had to do, once we got on it, when we drove on it, I didn't really care for it, didn't like it because it was all grown up. But when I saw the house, I said, this looks good. Then I saw the beautiful streams on it, and I'm like, okay, well, we can clean this up. So it took a while to clean up all the underbrush that had grown in front of the house, behind the house, refilled a pond. I wanted fruit trees. I planted fruit trees. I thought it would be a deer haven, but there really wasn't that many deer. So I had to plant a lot of stuff and do some feeding to bring the deer in because I love to watch them. Now, I will tell you, when I was younger, I would always hunt. But my dad always taught me that if you're not going to eat them, don't shoot them. That's taking a life. So My wife loved animals, loved the deer, and I loved watching them, so I was fine with that. So we started bringing them in. We started feeding the deer, planting clover, planting all kinds of stuff. And after we had been here several years, I started seeing things that didn't make sense. I started seeing trails that it looked like no animals that I know would be on, because the trails were smushed flat. Every limb, everything on it was crushed. Deer don't do that. Other animals don't do that. There's no bear here, so they're not crushing all these limbs on the trail. What's doing it? The only thing I could think of were elephants, but I'd never heard about elephants being escaped in Georgia. I just hadn't heard that. Then I started seeing stuff at the pond that we had a barn next to it and catch on fire, and we had to throw the wood part into the pond to stop it, the sawdust from reigniting. I took all the stuff out when I put minnows in it, baby minnows, and then they went back in there. And on the burnt side, it was always down near the edges, and every time you flip it over, there was all kind of leeches on the bottom. I would clean them off and take them out again. Fish will eat them, but it's got to be sunfish or bigger fish, and we only had the baby minnows in there. They got put back in there, burnt side down. It made no sense. The burnt side is the light side, and every time they were in there, they were close to the edge. We took them out 3 times, and finally I said, heck with it. Because in my mind, you got to have hands to pick these things up. Some were 20 to 40 pounds. And it was on a hill on the other side of the side-by-side trail. That made no sense. There were logs over the trail going to that side that it was all grown up, so I had to run over trees to get to the dried-up pond to refill it. And they had just been broken. There was no signs of any machinery or anything cutting it. That made no sense. That didn't match anything. Why would somebody abandon a property, break these huge logs, and put 3 of them in a row over this trail? Made no sense. Then, again, after we had been here a while, Christmas of 2019, my children bought me a cutout of Bigfoot. I put it in the backyard off the porch so I could see it. 2 weeks later, at night, we had whistling off of our back porch when my wife was out on the back porch. She thought it was one of the kids. She ran in and woke me up. I didn't hear anything by the time I got out there, but the dogs had been going crazy, and it matched nothing of any animals I ever heard. I'd heard a matriarchal doe one time whistle, but they would never go within 5 yards of dogs jumping up and down, growling at a fence like that was happening with her. 2 weeks later, I had the house hit on our bedroom at 4:47 in the morning. Picture almost came off the wall. So then I started thinking and ruling out everything it could be. It wasn't an earthquake, because earthquake is under the floor. This was high on the side of the wall on the outside of the brick house. It wasn't a tree falling on it. They were too far away, and there was no bad weather. It wasn't a jet going by. It wasn't anything that I could think of that could have done that. So the next day, I go outside. I even that night went and looked online to see if maybe there was an explosion somewhere nearby. Nothing was reported. The next morning, I go out there and I see the grass was pressed down. Something had hit the bricks 9 to 10 foot up. That makes no sense. I'm tall, got long arms. I can't reach that high. And here's something hitting 9 to 10 foot up, and all the grass is matted down. I was like, that made no sense. So I started putting it all together. I went and looked at an article. I went in and put Bigfoot in a town close to me, and it came up with a BFRO sighting and in the county that I was in. And when I started reading it, the location was hidden. When I started reading it, I could tell by the roads they were talking about, it was really close to here. So I wanted to contact that person and find out, where this location was. So earlier I had met David Becerra at Expedition Bigfoot in Blue Ridge, and I had finally got in touch with him after several tries, and I was asking him if he knew anybody at the BFRO and knew this person. Come to find out, he had been in the BFRO, and he said that person no longer does it, and they don't have that person's number anymore. Then he said, can I ask you some questions? So he asked me a lot of questions like, did I hunt? Did we have fruit trees? Do we feed animals? Which we did. We had bird stuff out. We fed the deer. We fed the fish. We put all that stuff out there, the clover and stuff that rabbits were at. We're feeding everything because we love the outdoors and still do. So he said, I asked him when he got done asking me the question, he said, I think I know what's going on. And I said, so what is it? He said, you know what it is. That's why you're calling me. You have a Bigfoot. Well, that floored me because really, in reality, I thought there could never be a Bigfoot except if one was real over on the West Coast or Canada, Alaska. But everything that I'm seeing makes no sense to any known animals that I'd ever been around. So then I asked him, I said, why do you think that? Because that blew my mind. I didn't think anybody knew that much about them. And here he is not only telling me that, and I said, what do you think it is? He says, they're letting you know they're there and they want to coexist with you. And that just blew my mind. And then I said, why do you think that? He started asking me a bunch more questions. Have you had logs or trees pushed on your driveway? No. Have you had your house hit several times on the side of it at night? No. Have you had things thrown on your roof of your barn, your back porch? No. Have you had anything growling at you from the woods? No. He said, well, that's what they would be doing if they didn't want you there. So I'd always gone by the thing, trust but verify. So I'm going to find out if they really are here, because I was looking for deer tracks and I hadn't seen their tracks. Like I really wasn't looking for it. I was looking for deer tracks, but so I decided to put 2 headless nails on a tree and stick a red delicious apple on it right by that trail that everything was smashed on. Because if there was a Bigfoot there, that was their trail. And sure enough, I went down there and scraped some of the leaves off, and the leaves underneath it was soft. And I said, okay, if one walks up here, I'll see a sign of a footprint, which that's exactly what happened. They took them. When I went down there, there was a footprint, 16 to 16 and a half inches. You can see the impression, but much wider than a person. My foot's 2 to 3x wide, 13 and a half inches long, and it was much wider than mine. So then David got in touch with Scott and Sheila at Squatch-Fishing Outfitters and had them call me and do the report. And what I'll do now is I'll let them tell you about that and what happened from that point.
Yeah, David Becerra got in touch with us. They get an awful lot of reports at the museum, and when they get too many that it's overwhelming for them to handle, they'll pass them off to some other investigators to go and do the report for them, write it up, and turn it back into them. Well, Neil's report just happened to be one that David had passed off to us, and I got in touch with Neil and took his report, got everything jotted down, wrote the report up, sent it on in. And that was it on my part at that point. I told Neil at the time, I said, if you have any other questions or anything, and you feel like, or you want to talk to someone, we're always here. You got our number. You're more than welcome to call. So it wasn't too long. Neil calls us back. We're talking back and forth about different things that are happening on his place. And he invites us down there. Me and Sheila and another person, we load up and go down there, just to look around. And he shows us all the different things that he's seeing and he has going on. And It shows us a whole lot of really interesting stuff, and then carries us on down towards the pond. Well, me and Sheila, we go off in the woods. We, cross over some fence line, old fence line stuff, and go down by the creek that's in there. Mm-hmm. Once we got down in there, one of the prettiest tracks I've ever seen in my life, a slide track, was right there on the side of the creek area. We didn't have any casting material at the time because I would have loved to have casted that track. But we spent a good little time around there. And there wasn't no doubt in our mind at the time that he had a situation going on there. And he finally walked me around to the house to where the house had gotten hit. Whatever hit that house, I can assure you it was a serious, strong hit. It busted the mortar joint on that house from the roof line all the way down below the window. That's a pretty good hit, to bust a mortar joint that far. You'll hear mortar joints cracking like that on houses, that are new, that have set, or they're in their settling stage. But this house had been there for a long time. And the more and more we saw there, the more and more we were both convinced.
Yeah. The footprint really done it for me because I looked down there and I seen it was like on clay. The print was huge. We didn't have any casting material, but I took several pictures of that, and there was a couple more. And there was some tree structures, so it was obvious something was going on there. He had some kind of activity going on.
Yeah. And then Neil carried us around to the pond to show us the stuff that had been happening at the pond. And there's one trail over there, and he was telling us about this vinage and everything that was going across. Well, he shows it to us. And we get to looking at it and inspecting on it pretty good. And, it was amazing because the tree limbs and the vines that were laid across and pulled across this trail were done in like a fence section. I mean, the vines were actually tied. They were laced together. They were laced through the tree limbs, and they were like tied in knots. That was extremely unusual. And anybody, knows you got to have hands to tie knots. So when we finally left there, we were pretty well convinced. We were pretty well
he's
convinced.
Got activity
he's got some serious activity going on here in this place. And over time, we stayed in touch, back and forth, and we become friends over the years. And Neil went off on a few expeditions with us and seen how things went with us. And, we've just had a really good relationship and really good friendship the whole time.
And one thing I will tell you, what happened after we found out they were here, we started interacting with them and actually built a trust between the family. There was a family of 4 here. There was a large male, adult female, juvenile, and a young one. And they got to the point to where they weren't hiding their footprints. So I could kind of track them and tell what they were doing. Later on down the road, it got to where this was a safe zone to them. They had gifted us stuff. We had gifted them stuff. And I even started feeding them. Now, I will tell you, I don't recommend that at all. I was young and stupid in the Bigfoot world at that time. And I just thought they were a normal animal like deer, raccoons, But I did start feeding them. And because I wanted to learn everything about them. I wanted to see how they ate stuff, what they ate, everything. And then not too long after that, they made the place a nursery. They made it to where there would be 2 to 3 young ones here every year. A juvenile would be with each young one. And then the mature mom would kind of oversee the group. Now, this went on for several years. Then what happened was the worst thing in the world happened. 600 acres, a safe zone for them to the north of us got cut, clear cut. Then about a year after that, to the north of us, 200 acres got cut. And the 600 acres, when it got cut, it made a funnel area where another person nearby that knew they were here started shooting at them when they would walk by during the daytime. So they disbanded the nursery. There is still some living here, But I wanted to get this documented, what the deforestation of the woods would do. But I had to do it with people that I knew wouldn't give the location away. That's where, I've got Mark, Scott, Sheila, and Nathan, because I know that they're not going to give it away, to go document it. Scott and Sheila already knew about them and how much activity I had because I kept up with them. I would take pictures of stuff and send them pictures. I had so much wild stuff going on. I would call and talk to them about it. So they came down here to document it. And then from that point, Mark, I'll let you describe what y'all did. And Nathan can talk about the cameras. And, there were a bunch of cameras that we tried to get pictures with, but none were successful. That doesn't mean they didn't get anything, but I'll let them describe what that happened. But Mark, you can take it from here and just kind of cover what y'all did, what y'all saw, and stuff like that.
Well, just driving in, you can tell if there could be possible Bigfoot activity going on. And once entering into the forest, you see all this stuff like tree bows and these pathways that they were using, these tallboy trails. It was just simply amazing. And I really rely on Nate. Nate is one of these outfitters that for years he would go into the woods on his own, and he's able to read very well what kind of animals could be possibly there. He knows where to look. I remember the first time I met Nate, and it was at LBL, and I really observe people, and I just fixated on Nate and just how he was going about looking at things. And I'm thinking, yeah, if I saw this, then I would move in this direction, or I would start going into circles looking for the next clue. So what was your impression, Nate, of when we went down there?
Pretty much like any other place we show up to investigate, even if it's a camp, a new camp that Scott and Sheila had found. The first thing is the adrenaline rush, and you get out of the truck and your heart rate picks up. Your senses sharpen, especially when you get on those trails. Every twig that snaps just amplifies something moving through the brush, whether it's big or small. It gets your attention. I want to touch on what Neil said earlier about the nursery. We found a hide or a blind, a shelter, whatever you want to call it, that me and Sheila went into, and we were able to stand up straight in this thing. And it was divided into two sections. There was a small section that had a couple of saplings used as railings that were going horizontal. And all of that ground was pressed down. The foliage, all of that was matted. So what we figured, it looked like a daycare setting. It looked like a playpen to me and Sheila. So that really got my attention. I think it was the second day we were there.
Neil, tell us about your first sighting that you had that just really proved to you to where you wasn't scratching your head anymore going, I'm wondering, that you have actually laid eyes on.
The first sighting was amazing. We had a bay window with a table right in front of it, and I was looking out the bay window, And we've got a side-by-side trail down there, and there is something black down there, and it's squatting, but it's in the middle of where our trail is. So I knew good and well it didn't match any animal, and there was no animal supposed to be down there. And I kept looking at it, and it was actually squatting down, kind of leaning towards the window. And I started seeing the trouts that it had. It seemed like it almost went from the outside of the shoulders way up on the head, about to where the bottom of our ears were. And you can see the head. It looked like a juvenile. It looked like it had been about 6 foot if it stood up. But it looked very athletic. But it was squatting down, looking at us. And then I got and told everybody, I said, look down there. We've got one of the Bigfoot watching us. And they, of course, some of them said no. Others said, I don't know. It looks like a black bush. I said, well, first off, there aren't any black bushes. And second off, that's in the middle of our side-by-side trail. Now, me being a dummy, within 5 steps of me, I got a pair of binoculars in a drawer, and I didn't even think about getting it and look at it. And I told them, I said, I can mark where it is from where you're sitting, because when we get up to put our dishes in the sink and you come back, it's going to be gone. Sure enough, when we came back, it was gone. So my wife and I went down there, and sure enough, you could see where the grass was pressed down in the road, and you could see where it had walked into the woods by how the foot had matched the grass down on the way to the woods. And it was amazing, and it was also very neat at the same time, because that was the first sighting we had of one, and there's no doubt in my mind they were doing it on purpose. They were far enough away I couldn't get to them, but we had done a lot of interactions before that, and there's nothing about that tells me anything but they wanted me to see them, wanted us to see them at that point. And then it started from there. I've seen 3 more that I know 100%, and I have a high standard for calling a sighting. For me to call it a sighting, I have to see hair, facial features, know it's nothing else. It was crazy, because everyone I've seen, I see something different on it. From that one, the trouts going as high up as it did. From one of them, his hand was just huge. And another one, the ears, I saw a baby real close at about 7 yards, and its ear was flatter than ours. It was a little bit lower and a little bit smaller than ours. So I got a side view of it, and it was sitting, it was in a position like a rabbit would be. And when I saw those ears, I knew exactly what it was, because I'd smelled it before that. So I had 3 others that I don't call a sighting, but it's 90%. And the only reason I say that is because if there's an escaped chimpanzee somewhere, it could possibly be a chimpanzee, because 2 of them move like a chimpanzee. The other one was on the gifting station, and it slid down like a little kid sliding down off of playground equipment, which no animal does that. And the way it moved, its arms and all were outside its body frame. It moved spider-ish. Not exactly like a spider, but it was weird because everything was kind of outside the body. But I didn't get close enough to know definitely. That's why I don't say it's 100%, even though I don't think it could have been anything but that. But I won't call it a sighting because of that. And then I've seen bunches of shapes and shadows in the woods, but I can't call that a sighting. It doesn't meet my parameter of what I do. I want to be sure about what I see.
One thing that I really appreciate about everyone that is on here, we have to prove it. We try to eliminate any evidence that a lot of people want to drive, and if they find one footprint or one tree bow then they just want to jump back in their car and get phone reception and tell the World Wide Web, that they found evidence of a Bigfoot. But everybody here is diligent when it comes to following up and trying to prove that it is not a Bigfoot. And for those that don't know, Scott and Sheila asked me to be an outfitter with them last year for Squatch-Fishing Outfitters. And I was just so humble that they would ask me, because just being in the field and watching how they operate, there's no alpha males, and better yet, no alpha females. And it is great that whenever somebody thinks something or wants to try something, that everybody listens, we talk about it, and everybody gives 100%. That is so important, that when you go into the woods, that everybody is on the same game plan. Scott and Sheila, tell us a little bit more about when we went back this last time in May, how things could possibly be changing because of the clear cutting.
Well, one thing we noticed right off the bat, we got there and we seen the area that was being clear cut and how devastating the clear cutting was. We're not talking, a thinning of the forest. We are talking about cutting it to the dirt. And like what Neil had said earlier, the way it's being cut down, his property is becoming like a funnel area for where his property has the only forest around there. And the thing we noticed was we didn't see as much evidence as we did the first time we went there before all the cutting.
But the one thing, like Nate said, that just tickled me to death, I was bouncing off the wall. We found those blinds, what you want to call them, a smaller one and then the bigger one. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, to me, that's what that was, because it didn't make no sense for it to be anything else, especially the way they were structured and the limbs, and, they were just woven together. A deer didn't do that. And I'm pretty sure Neil wasn't out there, weaving them together just to play hide and seek. But I can't tell you how shocked I was about that. And then, with the gifting station out there, with all the food he was putting out, and we looked at that. I mean, there was prints there. There was trails leading from there. Yeah, there's going to be, squirrels, raccoons, and everything else. And sure, it could have been some of that, but it was not all of that, all of the wildlife creatures. I'm telling you that. It was not. There was prints there. And then a lot of people, I don't know if we've told everybody this, but the third night we were there and we were staying in Neil's camper. How big of a camper that?
It's a motorhome.
Yeah, big motorhome. And Scott and I were sleeping in that back bedroom back there. And everybody was asleep. It was me, Scott, and Nate, and Mark was at front. But something hit that camper that third night, and it moved. I mean, it hit the side of it. I remember asking Nate that next morning, did you get up? And I know Scott didn't. So I don't know what it was, but I'll never get over that one.
And, the part about, I was totally shocked. Neil had been telling me things about this, about how things were going and how things were slowing down. And he was getting, really concerned. And he was looking for a way, to preserve what he had, to get it documented and everything. He talked with me more and more about it. And then one day he hit me up and he asked me about Mark filming it, doing the documentary on it. And I told him it was a wonderful idea, at this point in time. Because a few years back, we had several people try to get into his place to do some filming work and all that. And he called me and asked me about it. And I gave him my opinion, my personal opinion, the best I could at that time. And my answer to it at that point in time was no. and reasoning for it. I said, if you ever let anyone in there filming, word's going to get out. Everybody's going to know where this place is at. And you're going to get all kind of encroachment, not only on your place, but the surrounding areas around you. And he agreed. And when all this started, his concern was to get the point documented to where it would be preserved for what he had. So he got in touch with Mark and got the ball rolling on that. And that's what brings us up here to where we're at today.
One thing I wanted to say, this happens so much. So many people think it's just as easy as putting a game camera out to get a picture of these creatures. They are so wrong. I had 10 to 12 cameras out in the beginning so I could monitor the deer. I never got a picture of one. I got glimpses of hair after I asked them to show me what they looked like after I knew they were here. And I started getting glimpses of hair on the side of the camera. But they know electronics. They know the electronics is there. Whether it's the electronics from the inside they can detect, whether it's the infrared, whether they can hear the sound. I don't know what it is, but they can detect it. I've had cameras before this time. I've had cameras that were brand new, worked about a week, and then just got fried. I've had them turn them sideways and then see a deer where they ambushed a deer near the feeder because you could see where the feet had just drug the ground loosely, limply. I had them to where the batteries went dead after 1 week when another one somewhere else went 3 months with the same batteries out of the same one. And that one had always done the same thing. So there's weird things that they could do. It's not as easy as putting cameras out there. Now, whenever we were out there, most of the time, I let Scott, Sheila, Nathan, and Mark do whatever they wanted to do. I just kind of left them alone. There were several reasons for that. My mom was sick, so I had to kind of watch her. I was up most of the night, a lot of the nights, helping her. But I wanted them to be unbiased. I wanted them to see what they could see. I wanted them to go where they wanted to go. There's certain areas I kind of wanted them to stay out of. There were areas where I knew they were that I stayed out of. And the area where they found those 2 structures, I knew that they stayed there because the mom stayed up on top of the hill above them. And down there is where I knew and seen shadows of little ones watching me as I went by. So I knew that they were down there, but I knew the mom stayed up on the hill from vocalizations and things like that. But there's other areas, and they knew I wasn't going to go in it. But I wanted them to go and see the stuff on their own. And then when they were putting cameras out, I wasn't down there when they did it. But why don't y'all talk about the cameras y'all put out and all the stuff that happened to y'all's cameras down there near the gifting station?
Fill us in, Nate, on what happened with your camera that we had set up by the feeding station.
I actually got it right here. So if you hadn't seen our documentary yet, what we did was on this one here, we were able to turn the IR off or on. And we had the IR turned off. And it's got a little magnet on the back. We could stick it on the bottom of a trailer or, a camper trailer or a cook stove or whatever and pick up anything that might come walking through camp. Hopefully we could get something, whether it's just regular varmints or whatever. We didn't have anything that metallic that we could have put this thing on. So we found some hedges that was alongside of the gifting station, just overgrown hedges, and they were like some small, spindly little offshoots from the hedges that we found, and we actually put this little camera between 2 of the offshoots, and we were able to tighten it up with a zip tie. We just put tension on the bottom of those offshoots, and it clamped the camera in there pretty tight. The next morning, we found the camera on the ground, and behind those hedges, we seen some impressions coming up to the back of the camera, where it may have just flipped the camera out of those spring-loaded offshoots that we had fastened this thing into. So we took the SD card back to base camp, and Mark checked the footage. If I ain't mistaken, there was something like 3 hours of footage on this, but nothing from that previous night. I know it works personally. I've tested it before leaving out for camp, charged it, left it running in the house, come back and checked, and it picked up everything I was doing, folding laundry, drinking coffee, whatever. I've used it in the yard out here, picking up the stray dogs coming through, getting into the cat food, whatever. It works. But for there to be 3 hours of footage and nothing from the previous night, I don't know. I can't explain that. And the fact that it was flipped out and laying on the ground, I have no explanation. So we're at par. We can't explain what goes on with the cameras or electronics. I know for a fact that my best picture that I had taken, it come from a cheap night vision Amazon camera. If they want you to see them, they'll let you. I don't care if it's infrared, thermal, or whatever. If they want you to see them, they'll let you, even with a naked eye. I've seen them with a naked eye. Scott and Sheila has. Neil. If they want you to see them, you're going to see it. If they want you to have a picture, you'll get a picture. But as far as the malfunctions, I don't know. I've had batteries go dead in the field. I was anticipating that for a long time, and there was a long period where I wasn't having that phenomenon until all of a sudden, batteries going dead, things like that. Thermal, screen going blank. Of course, I don't know, maybe the data was running low because I run a thermal off of my iPhone. I don't know.
I think that's something most investigators have experienced in the field. I know I could think of a dozen times that it has happened to me. I can think of times where there was 4 of us out there and everything from camcorders to recorders to thermals, everything went dead. And there was activity going on around us. And once the activity left the area, then everything started working. I don't have answers for it, but we do know that you can have a fully charged camera or recorder and it goes dead. It absolutely goes dead. And then you get back to camp and it's fully charged like it was. So it's just really, really strange to me. It's a phenomenon. And it was really something to see that those impressions that came up to that hedge, and then we found that camera laying on the ground, and there's no video footage of that camera being knocked out of that hedge.
Mark, you had a plot watcher on the opposite side of the gifting station.
Right.
Did you get any images from that?
I did not. And there was missing time. I run a timestamp on all of my plot watchers, and there was missing time in there. And that plot watcher was pointing towards your camera.
Wasn't yours turned at one point?
Both nights it was turned. And it was not in the same position. And I mean, it was on there tight. I had it sitting on a limb with a bungee cord wrapped around it. So it would have taken something to actually put hands or put something on it to turn it like that.
And I've actually had them in the field where I've got the stump feeders where I feed the deer. They've actually moved these stump feeders closer to the edge so they can grab them. And they've actually turned them where I had it so tight that it rubbed the bark off. And that's one time that I found the little deer hooves just dragging on the ground. I figured it must have broke its neck or something, didn't want me to see it because I had the camera right at it. And they turned it so much that the bark on that tree was ripped, as it turned it around. And actually, on the camera, you can actually see a fingerprint for a picture or two. So I guess it was hot and had moisture on it and then disappeared. But it's crazy all the stuff they can do. Now, one thing, when we were down there looking at the gifting station, we kind of cut some limbs away. So we wanted to reduce as much as we could to get other animals to not be able to interfere with the food up there. Okay. So Scott mentioned about putting sheet metal around the 4 posts going up to the roof. And I did that after they left. And I started putting food on the top of it because it's really tall. It's probably 7.5, 8 foot tall, something like that. But I would put like peanut butter. I would put different things on the top. And it's still disappearing off the top of it. And with that sheet metal, there isn't anything that should be able to climb up there to get that off. That's just some things I try to do to reduce misidentification. I think I sent Scott a picture of it the other day, but we try to do everything we can do to stop any misidentification of what's doing what. And I learned a lot by how they open things. So a lot of times I can just tell by how it's opened what did it, because you don't see claw marks, you don't see teeth marks. And they have a very unique way of opening different containers. The peanut butter box, they have a unique way of opening it and pulling it out. It's not the way we do. The same with the packages on the inside. They don't grab them from the end and rip them. They grab them from the sides and pull them open. And if a raccoon or something like that did it, you would see the little claw marks or little teeth marks. And they're not. It's just the strength of them grabbing that plastic and pulling it from the sides and it comes open. So there's a lot of things I've learned from putting the food down there. But it's really neat when you start doing things to try to rule out other animals and start really observing how things are done and, being able to rule out other animals. You've got peanut butter jars that when a raccoon gets it, he'll eat a hole into the bottom so he can get it out of the bottom. When they eat it out of it, it's clean. I mean, it's clean on the inside, and most raccoons can't even reach to the bottom of a peanut butter jar. So it's just really unique, all the stuff you can learn about them, especially when you got them living around you a lot, like we have here. The ones that are here year round. They don't migrate. There are some that migrate other places, but not here. Now, the ones that were here originally are not here. Right now, I believe there is a young male, a young adult male, a young adult female, and they had another baby this year and maybe a young one. So there's still 4 that's in the area a lot, but it's nothing like it was. When the nursery was here, they would come look in the window to watch TV. They would tap on the house if you were playing music because they love music. It was really, really something when all that was going on.
Let's talk about habituation. And that is something that you kind of have 2 camps on. some people say, don't do it. And then some people do it. And this is something that when me and Neil first started talking, that I wanted to make sure that him and his family were protected about this and that there was a backup plan. You can't just feed them for years and then just all of a sudden just stop cold turkey like that. And so I really appreciate how Neil's family they have all come together. And Christy is so good about what she does, because I don't know if she was ever a believer until she started experiencing these first things. But I think it's something that if you choose to habituate, to feed, that you do have a backup plan, because there are some horror stories out there where somebody might go into a hospital or somebody might be gone a while. But this relationship that you have built with them, there has really been nothing that was negative that has happened. And so for me, that's a positive thing, and it shows that Neil is going about it the right way.
Well, I think you have to be lucky, too. You have to have a group that's willing to be friendly to you. And I really think the male sets the rules for the most part. But the situation here was the female had a lot of input. But if they hadn't have wanted to coexist with us, if they never let me know they were here, I would still be seeing things going on that I had no idea what was making it happen. But they let me know they were here. Then as I started gifting them, they started gifting me back, which said they want to coexist with us. And I think they try to learn from as much about us as we do about them. And they pattern us, because when we do things different, they actually come after we've had a party and checked on us. I've got footprints on the back porch where they were behind the fern looking at us, making sure we were okay on the inside. But you're right, you never know what can happen. That's the reason I always tell people that I was really young in the Bigfoot stuff. I was 50-50 that there might be one still alive, but Christy never thought they were alive at all. But she's seen so much and heard so much now that she knows absolutely, and we just laugh about it. We're good with them. We kind of set up rules. One of my rules was no looking in the windows. One of them was don't hit the house. You can tap on it, but don't hit it. Don't come in the house. Don't damage our car or the side-by-side. Now, they have dented in a door trying to push it open rather than pulling it. And they've got rules with me. There's certain areas they don't want me to go into. They don't want me taking pictures of them. They don't want me trying to hurt them. They don't want me to bring in people into their area, which that's the reason why one of the reasons why I never brought anybody in here, but when I did, I had to choose people that I knew that would protect them. Because most people wouldn't. Most people would go say, I know where there's a bunch of them. I don't need that. We were friendly with this family. We have built up a relationship with them, sort of like an extended family. They've actually warned us of danger. And I know that it's true. I mean, what animal would do that? And I'll tell you just a little example of that. I took one of our relatives and her friend to the pond to feed the fish. Now, I'd heard lightning off in the distance, but the wind was blowing that way, so I thought there was no way that the storm was going to come our way. I get down to the pond. All of a sudden, I hear lightning a little bit closer. I hear a tree branch snap 25 yards from us really loud, and I get the feeling they're trying to tell us we need to leave now. So I told them, I said, let's go. We need to leave now. And my relative said, are we in danger? Because she knows about them. She's seen the prints. She's seen the tracks. She's even seen one with her son. And I said, no, they're letting us know that a storm's about to hit and we need to leave. So we go as fast as we can. We get back to the house. Now, they said they heard lightning strike at the pond. I didn't hear it, so I can't verify that. But we were 2 steps in the house and a hailstorm came. Hail started coming down. Lightning started to strike like crazy. If we hadn't have left then, we would have been in the middle of it. And they warned us of it coming. And basically, if they hadn't have done that, we could have got hit in the head with some hail, struck by lightning. You don't know, but they actually warned us of that. Normal animals don't do that. You're dealing with something much smarter than the normal animals, I believe.
I'm humble and I'm excited to be a part of this project because I know there are other people that are out there that are going through this, where land around them is being encroached, and that has to be a negative towards the humans, because it only makes sense that they can associate us with other humans. What says that Neil might just all of a sudden start cutting his timber down? But this trust that they have with him, it's encouraging. And so we just really want to document what's going on right now. And in the documentary, we talk about some of the experiences that Neil and Christy have had on the property over the years. So this film is to be continued, and we're going to see what happens. I would like for Scott and Sheila to talk a little bit about Squatch-Fishing Outfitters, because I have been involved with hundreds of people in different groups, but the first time being in the field with them, I was just so impressed with how they conduct themselves in the field. So, Scott and Sheila, talk to us a little bit about y'all's outings and taking people out, because not everybody has the time to go out and put boots on the ground and spend, their life looking for these things. But it's like someone that might want to go fishing in a different part of the country. And so they pick an outfitter, somebody that knows where the fish are at and is experienced. So Scott and Sheila, tell us a little bit more about Squatch-Fishing Outfitters.
Well, we started up Squatch-Fishing Outfitters several years ago. We're in about,
this is our 4th season.
In our 4th season of actually taking out expeditions. We've been doing it longer than that, but as far as doing expeditions, we've been doing it for 4 seasons now. We originally started it to enable people that wanted to go do this an avenue they could, that was affordable for everyone, that anyone that wanted to do it could do it. Because there's other places out there they could go, but it's extremely expensive. We decided we'd go and venture into this, and along with the fly fishing deal, guiding fly fishing. And as we got going into it more and more, it started growing a little bit, and we realized that we couldn't do this by ourselves, right along our own. We had to have additional help. So then it was to find people, that we meshed good with, we all could trust each other. Because when you're out in the woods in the middle of the night, people that knows what I'm talking about, it's dark out there. Something starts happening, and the last thing you want to do is turn around and find your buddy and him not be there. Well, that's not the kind of people you want with you. And that's why we have folks like Nate, Mark, and Haley and the other people that we have with us, is because there's no doubt in my mind if something goes sideways, I don't have to wonder where they're at. They're right there with me. No, you've got to have that kind of camaraderie, brotherhood, whatever you want to call it, that good feeling doing what we do.
And we try to make everybody feel like family. That's our goal. I mean, and we want, when people come, if they're new or whatever, we want them to feel comfortable. Of course, you're going in the woods with a bunch of strangers that's hunting Bigfoot. So, I mean, as comfortable as you can possibly feel, like-minded people. And, so that's our goal. So usually when people come, they enjoy it. They leave us friends. And I can honestly say we have at least 99% returns, know.
Yeah. At least that.
So, and yeah, that's why we do it. We do it because we were interested in it, really didn't know how to go about doing it. And this is what we do. This is what we enjoy. So as long as we can
keep it going, we will.
Yeah.
Because Lord knows, everybody that's on this show right now knows we don't make no money at it. At the end of the year, if I break even, I'm tickled to death.
Yeah, we do it because we enjoy it.
And if I can say something about it, it is good food, good friendship, and a good time. I mean, I've gone several times, and I wish I could go every time, but due to some circumstances that I'm in, it just doesn't. It's kind of hard to get away. But some of the stuff that's happened is just crazy. I mean, from sitting by the fire pit and having little pebbles and acorns thrown by you, near you, hearing mouth pops come up in the woods behind you within 10 yards of you, and not know if it's going to reach out and touch it in the next second. I mean, there's some really neat stuff that goes on. You can learn a lot about them by listening to Scott and Sheila, listening to what's going on around you.
I think, like you were saying a while ago, you build a trust with them. I think we're in the woods so much, I really and truly believe that they recognize us. And most of y'all know we have activity at our house, too. And you're talking about them knowing what's going on at your house. They know what's going on here. If Scott was to be gone for a couple of days, they know it.
Oh, yeah. No doubt about that. And back to what I was saying a while ago, when we chose people, to be with us, on this venture and everything, we were very careful about in our choosing of people. And like I said, you want that perfect person with you. And that's really and truly a hard thing to find. And we have been overly blessed. I mean, I say that from the bottom of my heart with people that are with Squatch-Fishing Outfitters. Yeah. I'll be a little bit biased about what I'm going to say, but I will say that I personally think we have one of the best teams out there. Experience, the knowledge with electronics, because we have to have that because me and Sheila don't have none.
Well, we don't have knowledge on all this. I call Haley my IT person now.
And I'm just proud of each and every one of the people that are involved with us.
Yeah.
Because Lord knows we could not do it without y'all.
One thing you said, Sheila, about they know when he's gone, they pattern you so much. They know so much more than you think they do. For example, when I go and I'm bringing in Walmart bag to the house, they know that I've got stuff in the back of my truck for them. And you'll see little footprints come in a lot of times and look in the back window to see what's in there for them. They don't go in it. They don't hit the car. I have found fingerprints and stuff on the car, but they'll actually come look in the back the night that I'm bringing the Walmart bags in to see what's in the back for them. And that's crazy, but they pattern you so much that they know that I leave it in there because they've watched and seen me take it out. So they go check it out. It's crazy.
They're like the best, nosiest neighbors you could ever have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Nate, do you have any final thoughts that you would like to leave our audience with?
I'd like to add to what Scott said about being trustworthy and having each other's back. That if anything happened to one of us, we turn around and the other one's not there, somebody's not bringing up the rear, he's gone. That's been verified We were coming out of the ridges in West Virginia. And I was bringing up the rear. The group was following the asphalt. It was a long loop back to the trucks around the field. I shot straight across that field, and I thought, I'm at their peripheral vision. Surely they're going to see me and follow me. It's a shortcut, right? When we get back to the trucks, Scott and Sheila had turned around and heading back into those ridges to find me. So that's been verified. We'd do that for anybody.
And that's for sure.
Absolutely. Scott, Sheila, do y'all have any final thought?
Well, if anyone out there would like to get in on one of these expeditions or one of these outings we put on, look us up on Facebook or go to TikTok and find us on there at Squatch-Fishing Outfitters. We're pretty easy to find. We put a lot of good information on there. And we're getting pretty decent at that TikTok, so.
And I want people to know this. I want people to know you don't have to be no triathlon winner or whatever. We're not hiking in the woods 10 miles, and that's not what we're about. I mean, and it's just, we don't have to go far. We kind of put you where you need to be. And, if you want to hike a little bit deeper, that's fine. But like I say, people that want to do this but don't think they can, I want them to know that they can. They absolutely can.
Yes, because we have situations set up to where anyone that wants to go can. If it's a physical disability where they can't hike, we have a sitting group, and that's for people that are either in that situation or that just don't want to hike off in the middle of the woods at night. And a lot of times that group has just as much, if not more, activity than the hiking groups. Mm-hmm. So we do our very best to fit everything into everybody's needs. And again, if it wasn't for everybody else, we wouldn't be able to do all that.
Neil, do you have any final thoughts that you would like to leave us with?
I would like for everybody to go and watch the documentary. And Mark, you can tell them what it is and everything. It's on YouTube. I've seen it several times, and there's always things you can miss and pick up on. But hopefully we have more to show and more to come. Hopefully some of the woods grow back and they move back into the area. Right now, we still have some that want to stay here and live here, which is a good thing. But if they don't go and start building on the property, in a few years, it'll start growing back. And I think they'll come back as long as it's people don't go and start shooting at them and a bunch of stuff like that. And then we can maybe have a nursery again. And the nursery is an amazing thing. You have so many little prints running around. It's crazy. But Mark, you want to tell them about the documentary and the names and how they can find it?
Absolutely. I have a YouTube channel that is called Sawdust Beast. And sawdust is spelt with 2 T's at the end. And Larry Porch and myself, we had a live podcast for years on there. And we've had so many great guests. But I'm looking forward to the future. The film that will be coming out next, if you are familiar with my channel, is when I asked Scott Espinosa, Can Squatch, to come with me to PJ Arkansas's place where they live, and they have boogers around them. And so it was an amazing weekend that we spent there. And really, the first couple of times I just went by myself into the woods and camped in the woods. But I wanted somebody there that would actually witness and confirm things that would happen. So I'm excited about that film, and I'm chomping at the bit to do the next one with, it was Scott and Sheila and Nate, and we were at LBL, and we had some strange things going on. And not all of it was Bigfoot. And so far, I'm leaning at the title of being called Spirits of LBL, because it will blow your mind whenever we go to do that. So I want to thank everybody for coming on tonight. I especially want to thank Vic. Vic, the person that you hear on his podcast, that is who he is in real life. And I just have so much respect for him. And he's just such a kind-hearted individual. And I wish that there were more people that were out there like Vic doing these different podcasts. So with that said, we want to thank everybody for listening, and we will see you again real soon. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Well, that's it for tonight's show. If you've had a Bigfoot sighting and would like to be a guest, please go to mybigfootsighting.com and let us know. Thanks for listening. Have a great night.
Seen a bunch of rundown no-horse towns where the church is the backbone, loves and the plow, and the five-string melodies grooving, with the farmland rows where the roots run deep, beyond the noise of the busy streets, where the songs of the South are soothing. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Yeah. The sound of a memory brings me back to the bluegrass playing on my dad's 8-track. His pickup man had been through it, getting through the day on Scruggs and Skags, booking their bales to those Tennessee jams. There's no other way that I'd do it. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Yeah. Somebody coming backwards in double time, getting to the soul and the tremolo Kentucky style. Those are the anthems strumming out, country boy living. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Pace of the city life drives me wild. The only tune is the cars rushing by, with the bass on the stereos booming. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Yeah. Somebody going backwards in double time, getting to the soul and the tremolo Kentucky style. Those are the anthems strumming out, country boy living. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm ringing out, I don't run from banjo music. Somebody going backwards in double time, getting to the soul and the tremolo Kentucky style. Those are the anthems strumming out, country boy living. When I hear the front porch picking down, home rhythm, ride chicken porch swing, mama's best sweet tea kind of sound.